The government has warned that Ireland's pharmaceutical exports could be halved over the next 5 years if US tariffs of 20% are applied and the EU retaliates with similar taxes. In Strasbourg, the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said the EU would be prepared to retaliate with strong countermeasures if the US President announces tariffs tomorrow, as is expected.
The sun has been shining on the Irish economy for some years, but the Trump administration's plan for tariffs could be about to cast a shadow. Today, Simon Harris warned of the potential damage to Ireland's lucrative pharmaceutical industry.
Over a 5-year period, if the EU imposed a tariff of around 20% and the US imposed a tariff of around 20%, you could, over a 5-year period, see a very significant reduction up to around half in the amount of pharmaceutical products we're exporting.
In Strasbourg, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen warned Europe was prepared to retaliate.
Europe has not started this confrontation. We do not necessarily want to retaliate. But if it is necessary, we have a strong plan to retaliate and we will use it.
Ireland's prosperity over recent decades has been driven by being a small open economy which keeps barriers to trade at a minimum. It means we've a remarkably healthy economy, a strong jobs market and a lot of multinationals here. But anything that upsets our trading relationship, particularly with the US, could hit Ireland hard.
Changes in US trade policy could be very disruptive for the Irish economy. Our two economies are incredibly interlinked from a trade and investment perspective. Relatively, at an EU level, Ireland will potentially be one of the most impacted economies.
So is it all bad news? Well, a deal and a suspension of tariffs would keep the sun shining on the Irish economy. But like everything involving Donald Trump, the only certainty is unpredictability. David Murphy, RT News.
Well, around 50,000 people are employed in more than 90 pharmaceutical companies located throughout the country, and Ireland is the third largest exporter of pharmaceuticals in the world, with exports reaching €100 billion last year.
The pharmaceutical sector is a huge part of the Irish economy, providing thousands of well-paid jobs and contributing billions in corporation tax. This map shows some of the locations where some of the pharmaceutical companies are based, and there's a wide geographical spread. Pharma is a significant employer in the Midlands and West. Most of the big firms have bases in Dublin, and there's a cluster in Cork where companies such as Pfizer, Merck, Johnson & Johnson, Lilly and AbbVie all have major operations. Pat Dineen is a pharmaceutical worker based in Cork and is an activist with the SIP2 trade union. He says there are worries among staff about what US tariffs might mean for the industry.
There is a concern, probably more in the medium term, with regards to how the big corporations may relocate. And I suppose it's not a plea or anything, but I think that it would be more sensible for the corporations to look at the huge benefits that they have accrued from being here in Ireland.
Exports of medical and pharmaceutical products rose to €99.9 billion last year. Ireland is now the world's third largest exporter of pharmaceuticals. US tariffs and the EU's response could deliver a major blow to our pharma exports.
It's concerning to companies. They will have to absorb a lot of costs because it's very difficult to pass on that cost to customer, to patients in the United States. And so any extra cost, such as 25% or more coming in on a business, is extremely difficult to absorb for any length of time.
No one is forecasting immediate plant closures or job cuts due to tariffs, but there are concerns over the long-term pain if future pharma investments were to stop. Brian O'Donovan, RTE News.
Well, our Europe editor Tony Connolly joins us now from Brussels. And Tony, the White House making it clear tariffs will come into effect on Thursday. What is happening in European circles tonight?
I think, Ray, all the arguments by member states have been made in conjunction with the European Commission about what kind of reaction there should be. Indeed, there's a YouGov opinion poll out this evening saying that in 7 European countries at least there is a clear majority of people who want the European Union to retaliate if these measures come into effect. Now, Ursula von der Leyen in Strasbourg made it clear that the EU is going to be in the strongest possible position when these tariffs hit. And they also have concerns that the US could widen the net. In other words, impose tariffs on European goods if the EU proceeds to, for example, regulate big tech. There are a couple of key judgments from the European Commission this week, actually on Apple and on Meta. So for that reason, the EU is reserving the right, if you like, to target Wall Street banks, intellectual property, public procurement, a much wider set of instruments than they have talked about to date, which would typically have talked about bourbon whiskey, Harley-Davidson motorbikes, and so on. So the warning is there, but of course the EU would prefer a negotiation. It's only really worth your while retaliating if you think there's going to be some kind of course correction by your opponent or some kind of space for negotiations. So far that space doesn't appear to be there.
Tony in Brussels, thank you.